法师早上法师，我听不到你讲话，法师你已经 mute 了，我们听不到你讲话，听不到讲话，法师啊。
Testing, testing.
Testing, testing, testing.
Okay, also make sure that the other speakers are properly on Zoom, who are to appear like Professor
Yes. Okay.
Wang Xing and Professor Kang Rasa. There, some people are like me and not very familiar with the Zoom thing. They must know and they must be connected. In the last minute, we can't have any mistake. Okay.
早上法师。
你好。
早上。
你好。
Testing, testing.
Good morning.
Morning, Sama.
Make sure the speakers are on before you start. Especially, if we are having him, help him to get on Zoom.
No, it's only this one.
And Prema, we must see Prema. We must see Prema.
Prema is not online.
No, this is the function. It's the family is very important. Ausi can help also. They should look into this.
Yeah, yesterday her granddaughter helped.
Yes,
Okay, either Prema or their son. Somebody must be representing the family.
yes. Okay, I'll put them on the Zoom. Yes, I'll confirm.
Quickly.
Good morning. May I now invite the Mahasangha to be seated. We will be starting today's event shortly.
Yeah. Chero, again, I don't see you. You must be seen, the MC. Okay? I don't see anybody speaking. I don't know where the voice is from. Make sure that you can be seen.
Ante, can you see me?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Like, we don't even know where the voice is coming from. And now let me see.
I've just invited the Mahasangha to be seated.
I know I heard those words, but I didn't see you. Now I can see. Okay, better now. All right, it's better. Yeah. And ask them to also zoom in the few students who are there representing also. They see some devotees. Every now and then.
May I now invite the attendants to be seated. And for the attendants, may I please ask you to turn off your mobile phone if you have not already done so. Please turn off the ringtone of your mobile phone if you have not done so. Venerables, distinguished guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We gathered together here today to bid our final farewells to our beloved friend, colleague, and teacher, Professor Toshiichi Endo, who passed away peacefully in Colombo, Sri Lanka last Thursday. Professor Endo had a long and distinguished career in Buddhist studies. Initially, he taught at the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies of the University of Kelaniya in Sri Lanka. Then later, he became an associate professor at the University of Hong Kong's Center of Buddhist Studies. After his retirement, he continued to teach at HKU and also at the Buddha-Dharma Center of Hong Kong as a visiting professor. Before we begin the memorial service and Sangha Dhana for Professor Endo, on behalf of all the attendants, may I first offer our deepest condolences to his wife, Prema, in Sri Lanka, and to his sister, Yukie, in Japan, as well as to their families who are watching this event online. Today's event consists of the following. First, some of Professor Endo's close associates will say a few words. Second, some of his students will say a few words. Third, Venerable Pragapal will lead us to take the 3 refuge and the 5 precepts. This will be followed by making offerings, including light incense, flower, food, fruits, water, and robes to the Buddha, led by Venerable Anoma. Then chanting in Pali by the Sangha will take place. Afterwards, chanting in Chinese will be led by Venerable Hongxian and Venerable Yan Hui. Lastly, Dhana will be offered to the Sangha, followed by transferring merits to Professor Endo. And to conclude, the Sangha will give blessings to everyone. May I now invite our first speaker, Venerable Professor K.L. Dharmajoti, founder and chairman of the Buddha-Dharma Center of Hong Kong, to say a few words. Venerable, please.
Venerable members of the Sangha, family members, Prema and their son and others, now I believe attending from Sri Lanka, and Professor Endo's sister, our colleagues, teachers, students, and friends. Yeah, as the chairman, in my capacity as the chairman of the Buddha-Dharma Center, and as well as the academic director of all the teaching program, as well as in my capacity as the spiritual teacher for this community, I really should have been present and to directly direct the whole event. Today, I was just simply invited to be one of the speakers. So anyway, I must say something at the beginning. And the first thing, really, I must explain that today's meeting is somewhat different from the Thursday one. As soon as I got the sad news of Professor Endo's passing away, I called back and I called also our Nagasena and others to convey the message to Andrew, and I also spoke to Andrew. On that night itself, we had a chanting ceremony to dedicate merit to Professor Endo, which we have done. And today, the main thing is to really show our respect. It's a commemorative service, and to express our gratitude, and to express also our deepest condolences to him and to his family members in the Sri Lanka. Now, Professor Endo has always been, in the whole life, had been associated with Sri Lanka, so much so that really Sri Lanka was effectively his country. And that applies to myself also, and for all our careers. We started in Sri Lanka, and we continue to be connected with Sri Lanka. In fact, Prema was telling me, I was fortunate enough, although today I'm not able to be present here at BDC, but I felt greatly consoled that I was able to go to the funeral house in Sri Lanka. I happened to be in Sri Lanka personally, and I chanted some kathas together with the professors and others from Sri Lanka. We were all there, and to talk to talk to the members and to express our condolences to the families. Right. Because of this connection, therefore, today I would like to dedicate the religious function, actually the leading of the function, to our Sri Lankan student monk, Venerable Anoma. So there's a slight kind of departure from the introduction just now. So this is one thing. I like Anoma to lead because he is from Sri Lanka. He's very much connected with everybody there. Yeah. So of course others, venerables should join in later. And today especially I want to express my gratitude to Professor Somaratna, who is present here. Also long-time associate of myself, as well as Professor Endo, and of course Professor Guangxin, the director of the CBS. Yeah. Now, Professor Endo, of course, we knew that he was sick, and I was somewhat apprehensive when he had to, go through the whole journey on the plane and so on. As soon as I arrived, I tried to call, of course it was too late. And the next morning I called, I couldn't get him through. And then I learned that he was in the hospital. I couldn't get him. I could not speak to him there, but they said that he was okay. He was, recovering and so on. So I waited a few days. I called many times. So that's one part that at least I was able to do. Professor Endo, a lot of things to be said, but today it's also, we don't have time. We have many speakers. I like other people to speak about him. The first thing I want to say is that I learned a lot from him. Well, you know, technically he was even my student, and he did one course under me when he did the MA. We met at the beginning of our career in Sri Lanka when I first started my postgraduate study, and he was finishing his BA. So we met in the temple, and I believe we were deeply impressed and inspired by each other. So in that sense, as a fellow Buddhist, as a colleague, as a very close friend, one of my very close friends throughout my Sri Lanka career, I must say that I learned a lot from him. Yeah, and this means I learned from his, what we might say in Pali, there's a sappurisa goodness. Yeah? as a true man, you might say, with saintly personalities, and you know, he has always been understanding, kind, you know, and in a very quiet manner. He didn't want to show that, you know, he was helping. He helped so many of my students and even myself, but in a very unassuming way. That's very inspiring. And he never grumbled, never complained about anybody. Yeah, he always tried to understand others. And his serenity and so on. And you know that, of course, he wrote reminiscence of myself in the volume that he edited for my felicitation, for which I'm also very grateful. And he spoke of half a decade of associating with me as Kala Mitra. Indeed, I consider him as one of my most important Kala Mitra in Sri Lanka. So in that way, through inspiration of his personality, I learned a lot him. Since actually the late 1970s, 77 or 78, around there we met until now. Yeah, every time when he was in trouble physically and so on, I did my best. I went to him in the hospital. I spent hours and did whatever I could. I took my student and so on. That's because of my gratitude and my closure with him. And he is now, he has been the teacher of dozens of successful Chinese students from Sri Lanka. At that time we were in Sri Lanka, and I started teaching at Post Institute in early 1982, and batch by batch came from China, and he was a teacher like myself to these students. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, and of course, in Hong Kong University, I think Professor Endo, Guangxin would have said, year after year, I think he would have taught hundreds of students from MA, and everybody respected him, deeply impressed by his unassuming attitude. And one thing I will say is that he was never a self-promoter. He could have achieved even more in this academic career, but he never ever pushed himself. That's a big contrast to some of the people I met actually in my academic career. So this one I mentioned, and personally, he was a teacher of the so-called first group of, among others, the 5 bhikkhus or bhikshus from China, and this included the first director, Venerable Jing Nanda, and the present director, Guangxin, and others like Xue Yi, who is now in the University of Chinese University of Hong Kong. He was the teacher. Yeah. And it was he and Prema who brought these 5 students to explain their problem to me, and we worked out how to help them to get admission to the postgraduate. So he has done so much, and all these students, as you can see, are successful, are doing great service to Buddhist study. And my personal disciples and students, and this includes Amrita Nanda, Dr. Amrita Nanda, Dr. Dhammakita, Dr. Nanda, and Dr. Nagasen and so on, they were supervised by, he was his PhD supervisors, and later on became the mentor also, always concerned about their progress. So he had so much, I can't finish talking, there's no time to repeat all these things. So we are extremely grateful. In fact, that day when I told Nagasena and Dhammakita, and both of them said that they would conduct ceremonies in their home, which I did. And I saw the picture. I don't know whether it had been passed on to you people. You know, they did elaborate much more than BDC, I must say. Sangha Dhana and chanting, and then with the Prof. Endo's picture all sent to me. So I and my students, my disciples, also those from Bangladesh, extremely grateful to him. And of course, he, besides lecturing, teaching, at CBS, he also taught, and he also supervised PhD students. Today, there are some PhD students here going to speak here. So, and of course, he was the supervisor and then later also mentor of Dr. Eliza Fook, who was one of my last students from CBS who got her PhD. So I don't want to spend too much time now. The Buddha said, all conditionings are impermanent. Anicca vada sankhara. So we know that kata that is going to be chanted, anicca vada sankhara upada vaya dhammino upachitva nirochanti tesam upasamo sukho. Now, the Chinese, let me take this opportunity to tell you, you know the corresponding Chinese. Zhu xing wu chang, shi sheng mei fa, sheng mei mei yi, ji mei wei le. So everything is impermanent, and that's why I told Prema, she was overgrieved. She was shaking and crying when I met her. Anyway, she was able to come down. So his body, I was able to see in Sri Lanka. He is physically no more with us, but his Sappurisa gunas will always remain in our mind and will be forever grateful to him. Let me complete this short introduction by wishing him a samsaric faring and a successful continuation in his struggle towards Nibbana. May all beings be well and happy.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Bhante Dhamajyoti. May I now invite our next speaker, Professor Karunadasa.
And that's why I say someone must have to let him join the Zoom.
Dear Venerable Professor Dhamajyoti and other members of the Buddhist Sangha, dear colleagues and friends in the Dhamma, it is with a deep sense of sorrow that we make this heartfelt eulogy for our colleague, the late Professor Thosichi Endo. I knew Professor Thosichi Endo as colleague and friend for over a period of 46 years, both in Sri Lanka and here in Hong Kong. His initial exposure to Buddhist studies was under the tutelage of the late internationally well-known Professor Hajime Nakamura of the Tokyo Institute of Indian and Buddhist Studies. On Professor Nakamura's advice, in 1976, Thosichi Endo came to Sri Lanka to pursue Theravada Buddhist studies and enrolled as a student at the University of California. 4 years later, he obtained the master's degree by research for his dissertation, Dhana, the development of its concept and practice, securing a distinction pass. A few years later, in 1995, he obtained the degree of Doctor of Philosophy for his thesis, on the development of the Buddha concepts in the Pali commentaries. Since then, he authored 6 books, 7 book chapters, 47 articles, published in international journals, contributed 16 papers to Buddhist conferences, and delivered 36 keynote speeches. For over 10 years, he served as a visiting professor of Japanese Buddhism at the Kelowna University's Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies. And as most of you are aware, it was in 2005 that he came to Hong Kong to serve as a visiting professor at the Center of Buddhist Studies of the University of Hong Kong. Professor Toshiki Endo's greatest academic contribution is in the field of Theravada Buddhist commentarial exegesis, so much so that he has become a world authority in this field of study. As most of you are aware, Professor Endo's beloved wife is Prema. She accompanied him wherever he went, keeping a watchful eye on his health. If Professor Endo was able to recover several times from his failing health, it was entirely due to her devotion and vigilance. We offer our sincere condolences to Madam Prema on the demise of her beloved husband. Professor Toshiko Endo was not only a Buddhist scholar, but a practicing Buddhist as well. Let us wish him the supreme bliss of Nibbana.
Thank you very much, Professor Karunadasa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May I now invite our next speaker, Professor Guang Xin, who is the director of the University of Hong Kong's Center of Buddhist Studies. Professor Guang Xin, please.
Hello, dear Venerable Professor Dhamajoti and Professor Karunadasa. And I also can see Mrs. Prema Yen is also online. And yesterday we had a memorial service already. I have spoken quite a lot. Today I will say more about the personal relation with Professor Endo. I know him for the last 30 years when I was in Sri Lanka, as Professor Dhamajoti said. At that time, he was teaching at the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, University of Kelowna. And we enrolled for the Master of Buddhist Studies there. At that time, I already studied with him Japanese Buddhism and others. He was a very nice and kind person. And whenever we have the time, we meet and talk to him and ask him questions. He's always, the Japanese way, very polite. So from that time onwards, we had a close association. So later on, I went to London to pursue my PhD studies there. And I later on also selected a similar topic as his PhD. And on the concept of the Buddha. Of course, my dissertation is mainly on the development of the concept of the Buddha from early Buddhism to the Trikaya. So I know that Professor Endo wrote a book on the concept of Buddha in Theravada Buddhism. So I wrote him an email and asked him, could you please pass me your book? I would like to read. And immediately he sent his book to me in London, and I started to read. I have been benefited a lot. So my first chapter on concept of the Buddha in early Buddhism, so I get a lot of information from Professor Endo. So I benefited in this way. And in 2009, he was invited to Hong Kong and started his new careers here. And for the last 13 years, we have interacted constantly on daily basis. And of course, we don't see each other every day, but we see each other most of the days because his office is just next to my office. So we are so close. And something like 5 years ago, he retired from the University of Hong Kong. Therefore, he has more time. And he has sincerely wished, and this is also his passion, to translate the Pali commentaries. As we know that there is not many scholars all over the world who are specialized in Pali commentaries. And he is one of them, and very important. And he always wanted to do this, he told me. So finally, I talked to my friend, Mr. and Mrs. Ken Hudson, and both are devoted Buddhists. So they said, okay, we will support your project. That is a very meaningful project. Therefore, we started this project, and Professor Endo immediately sat down and started to translate these valuable resources, not only for the Theravada Buddhist studies, but also for Buddhist studies, in India, Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia. So for last 2 years or 3 years, we have completed the first volume already, and the first volume already edited, and it's in the printing house. So I suppose, so the printed version will be out for the first volume, I think this month or next month. And after that, then Professor Endo devoted a life to translate the second volume. And before he left Hong Kong on the 23rd of January, and I met him on Friday, and we discussed. And he said that he sincerely wishes to continue the translation project. I said, that is a very, very good idea. I wholeheartedly support his idea of translation. And I told him is that health comes first and very important. When you go back to Sri Lanka, take a good rest. After a good rest, when you are healthy, you can start translation. We will support you. So we agreed. So he left, but as you know, what happened. So we really, really miss Professor Endo a lot, and we really lost a world-leading scholar on Pali commentary studies. And I have discussed with him many times for the last several years. And if possible, and if conditions are ripe, and we want to republish all his works, the Dhana, the book, first book, and second, of course, the concept of the Buddha. Oh, I forget. And he also completed another book on the Buddha's characteristics. This book has been completed, and Professor Endo passed it to OSE already. So OSE will edit and lay out the pages. So we will print this book probably in the summer. So we miss Professor Endo a lot, and I send my sincerest and deep condolence to Prema Endo, and thank you so much for so many years supporting Professor Endo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Guangxin. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May I now invite our next speaker, Professor Georgios Hakias.
Right.
No words can describe the loss of our dear colleague, Professor Endo. and well-known scholar of Pali and Theravada Buddhism. But I will say a few words. I met Professor Endo 8 years ago, and I will never forget how welcoming he was to me and to my wife, Christina, when we first arrived in Hong Kong and at the Center of Buddhist Studies. For the past 8 years, it was really a privilege and honor to work with him, for he was always consistent, reliable, and supportive to all of us in the center, and to many students he has inspired over the years. It is difficult to imagine the Center of Buddhist Studies without his elegant and erudite presence, but he will carry on being with us with the scholarly legacy he has left behind, and in the hearts and minds of all who knew him and the many students he has guided and taught over the many years. We are all visitors in this world, and from a Buddhist perspective, for the little time we have left, we must make it count in helping, inspiring, teaching, and supporting others. Professor Endo has shown us with his life's work the way. My deepest condolences to Madame Endo and to all his family. You are in our heart. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Professor Hakias. May I now invite our next speaker, Professor G.A. Somaratna.
Venerable Professor Dhammajyoti and Professor Karunadasa and Madam Prema and my colleagues and members of the Mahasangha. Thank you, Venerable Professor Dhammajyoti, for giving me this chance to share my few memories on Professor Toshiki Endo with his beloved companion Prema and the friends of the Buddha-Dharma Society of Hong Kong. Professor Endo's master, as Professor Karunadasa just mentioned, it was the distinguished Indologist Professor Hajime Nakamura, and Professor Nakamura and my master, Venerable Dr. Mapalagami Pulasaratira, were close friends. So the young Endo arrived in Sri Lanka to our monastic institute, Paramadhamma Chetya Pirivana, in 1976 due to this friendship. As 14-year-old at the time, I met this handsome, smiling Endo, who was 24. I still remember his arrival and stay with us. As Endo was to learn in English, he had special teachers coming to our institute as well. So this young girl, Prema, taught English to our young monks at our institute at the time. So Endo later joined the University of Kelaniya and completed his undergraduate and graduate studies with reputed scholars like Professor N.E. Jayavikrama, Professor Karunadasa, and Venerable Professor Kakapalli Anuruddha, to become one of the few great scholars in Pali commentarial literature and Theravada. So during his graduate studies, he joined University of Kelaniya as a visiting lecturer in Japanese. At that time, I was doing my undergraduate studies there, and I took Japanese as my minor. He became one of my teachers, Japanese teachers. So many years later, I met him again at the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, so where he was professor at the time. We regularly met as we worked together in running Sri Lanka Association for Buddhist Studies. So he served Sri Lanka Association for Buddhist Studies as a treasurer and did a very good job. And during my years at Peradeniya, I also invited him to teach Pali as a visiting scholar. and he traveled to Kandy from Colombo weekly, and he stayed at the nearby hotel for 1 or 2 nights. So our university payment was not enough for his traveling a long distance and hotel stay at the time. However, he made that difficult trip because he could disseminate knowledge and respect our relationship. And moreover, the trip allowed him to meet distinguished scholars like Professor Handru Kanda at Peradeniya. When I had an association with the Dhamma Society Thailand, I can remember that we went on a Tipitaka pilgrimage to Japan in 2008. Professor Endo delivered the keynote speech on the Pali Tipitaka at the University of Tokyo in front of a large gathering. And in the audience, actually, there were princesses, 2 princesses, and various other royal members from both Japan and Thailand. And it was a very great occasion, I consider, in his life. So again, when I was at the Dhamma Chai Tipitaka project, we invited Professor Endo to be our board member, advisory board member, and he visited our project twice and contributed immensely. From 2014 onwards, we became colleagues at the Center of Buddhist Studies again. He gave me strength many times, particularly sharing my feelings over the phone when he thought I was down. When I met him at his residence in Hong Kong 6 weeks ago, I realized he had decided to leave for Sri Lanka, and I also said it would be a good choice for him. A week before his departure from Hong Kong, I received a phone call from him, and I never expected it would mark as my last conversation with him, ending 46 years of our brotherhood and perhaps a karmic bond. His untimely death is a reminder to us of the uncertainty of life, as earlier Venerable Professor Dhammayoti chanted, Sabbe Sankara Anicca, all formations are impermanent. Death can occur anytime. It is better to pack what is valuable only, disposing all the dirt from our lives, and wait for the time to come. As our Jataka stories show, as worldly beings, we meet again and again, though we do not know that we were together in previous lives. So at this occasion, I would like to convey my condolence, sincere condolence to Madam Prema, and also wish Professor Endo the supreme bliss of Nibbana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Professor Somarana. May I now invite the next speaker, Dr. Choi Jung-Hui, to say a few words. Dr. Choi, please.
Hello, dear Venerable Dhammayoti, Professor Karunadasa, my teachers, all the colleagues and friends. Firstly, I pay my warmest regards to Mrs. Endo Prema. I hope you take good care of yourself. This is a very sad news for all of us. The passing away of Professor Endo. It is really great sad for all of us. In the Center of Buddhist Study, I was taught by Professor Endo, and we have been colleagues for over 10 years. His personality, he's very humble and never self-promoted and very diligent working attitude, inspire me how to be a better student and teacher. In the past years, Professor Endo and Mrs. Endo Prema treated all of the students in the center and staffs just like their own children, with the care of compassion and kindness. Although we are working in a totally different area of the academic research, Professor Endo's his teaching and his teaching really broadened my eyes and perspective to in the teaching and the research in my area. So I just send my best wishes for Professor Endo to attain supreme peaceful land of Nibbana. And your great teaching and academic contribution will inspire and guide us and numerous students to learn the true teaching of the Buddha forever. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Dr. Choi. I will now invite Professor Endo's students to say a few words. The first speaker is Dr. Amrita Nanda. Dr. Amrita Nanda, please.
Dear Venerables, Professors, friends in Dhamma, good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank and express my gratitude to my teacher, Venerable Professor Dhamma-Jyoti, for taking all the initiative to organize this nice ceremony today in the memory of my beloved Professor Endo. I knew Professor Endo, actually. I met first time Professor Endo about 20 years ago when I was in Sri Lanka. You were very small. Professor Endo and Auntie Pema used to visit my teacher in our monastery that we study. So I met him several times there. But actually I had a chance to study under him and associate with him closely after I came to Hong Kong in 2010. I feel very much privileged and honored to have a chance to study under Professor Endo. As a teacher, he was a very learned and inspiring teacher. I remember every time during my PhD period, every time I met him, he never failed to inspire me and encourage me in my research. He was always telling me life and work of many great scholars like his teacher, Professor Hajime Nakamura, Professor Hirakawa, Professor Jaya Bekrama, and Professor Jaya Tilaka. And he used to ask me to study their books and follow their method and style. So he always inspired me about this studies and about telling me. And I do remember, he was a very broad-minded and very open-minded professor. Whenever we had some kind of even a difference of opinion on certain issue, he never rejected or discouraged a student's view. Rather, he encouraged it, and he very nicely used to say, look for more textual references to support your opinion. It was such a kind, and when you go again and tell him this, I used to appreciate, and sometimes asked to look for more references. So he was a very, very learned and very nice scholar. Of course, my other teachers, they have evaluated his scholarship. I'm not yet evaluated his scholarship. Rather, I would say, beyond his academic setting, he was not just an academic scholar, but he was a practicing Buddhist. He was truly an endowment of the Buddhist quality, like, Buddhist quality like compassion, kindness, passion, and humbleness. He was so humble and so gentle. He respected almost everyone, every student's opinion. And he was truly actually a man of very high moral. And also I remember as a student, beyond our academic setting, he was extremely caring and kind teacher. He used to inquire about the well-being of the students and about their family. Often during the pandemic, this time, whenever I used to go and see him, he used to inquire about my other friends. He used to inquire about my family in Bangladesh. So, and on every special occasion, actually, he and Auntie Pema, they together used to invite us for a New Year, for birthday, for all a special occasion to treat us. So he was such a nice teacher. Actually, he take care of his student like his own children. There's something touches me very much. And he was also, I would like to thank him, express my gratitude for being an admirer of Buddhism in Bangladesh. He often used to share me his memory to visit of Bangladesh long time ago when he was a young man. He told me he visited Bangladesh. So actually he wanted to go again. I also invited him to visit to see the development that have taken place over the period of time in Bangladesh in the Buddhist community. But because of his poor health condition, he could not make it. So as a result, actually, because of his admiration for the Buddhism in Bangladesh and also for his love and respect for my teacher, he has guided many Bangladeshi students, including me. As a part from the Bangladeshi Buddhist community, I will spread our gratitude and we will always remember his service to us. And obviously, it's just indeed very sad that we lost him kind of untimely. If he were living with us for longer, we could go get more service from him, more kindness. But it's unfortunate incident. We met him actually last in the airport when we went to see him off on the 23rd of January, just 2 weeks ago. He left Hong Kong. So although he left us, but his teaching, his inspiration, and this motivation that will always remain with me. I will always try to carry out his teaching and his inspiration in my life and follow them in my own life. So I would again like to thank, and I would like to actually sincerely express my condolence to Auntie Prema and his family members on this sad occasion, and wishing Professor Endo a very good samsaric affair and his journey towards Nibbana. Thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Dr. Amrita Nanda. May I now invite our next speaker, Venerable Dr. Senda.
Dear Venerable Professor Dhamajyoti, members of Bhikkhu Sangha, and distinguished guests, it was really sad news to hear from Mr. Andrew and then from Venerable Professor Dhamajyoti that our beloved teacher, Professor Endo, passed away in Sri Lanka on February 4th. When I was a BA student in the University of Kelaniya from 1993 to 1997, he was one of our lecturers. The subject he taught was about Buddhist culture in Japan. In 1998, when I joined the MA program in the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, the University of Kelaniya, Professor Endo taught us the course entitled Contemporary Schools of Buddhist Thought in Japan. In 2003, I submitted my PhD dissertation to the University of Kelaniya, and he was one of 3 examiners appointed by the University of Kelaniya. In 2010, I came to the University of Hong Kong to study for my second PhD. He was appointed as one of my examiners, again by CBS. Since the first day I met him in Sri Lanka, for next nearly 30 years. He was always very kind, easy to approach, and very patient whenever I reach out for his help in dealing with the problems encountered in my study and my work, even a long time after my graduation. As far as I know, during my 10 years in Sri Lanka, Professor Endo taught many Chinese students, including Venerable Wisang, Venerable Yuan Liu, Venerable Xin Qing, Venerable Xin Guang, Venerable Xin Ying, Venerable Ding Hui, Venerable Wu Zi, Venerable Ben Xing, Venerable Fa Qing, Venerable Zi Yi, Venerable Zhen Jing, Venerable Hui Xian, Venerable Xin Guang, Venerable Nen Jing, Venerable Nen Ren, Venerable Nen Ci, Venerable Yong Xin, Venerable Wu Chan, and many more. We all are deeply grateful to have opportunities to study from him. For the last few years in Hong Kong, Professor Endo was not always healthy. When I heard that he and Mrs. Endo planned to go back to Sri Lanka for last winter vacation, I was worried about his health condition, but I never expected this could happen. We lost a mentor who guided many of us in pursuit of our Buddhist academic research, and a close friend who is a true Kalyana Mitra. My sincere condolences go to his wife Prema and her family, and wish Professor Endo the bliss of Nibbana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Venerable Dr. Senda. May I now invite our next speaker, Dr. Yan Nanda. Dr. Yan Nanda, please.
Thank you, Gerald. Bhante and professors and friends present here and present online. I first saw Professor Endo when I was a kid in Colombo, when Professor Endo with Madam Prema used to come to visit my master, Bhante Dhamajoti. But I had the opportunity to know Professor Endo and interact with him more closely and very closely after coming to Hong Kong, after I took a few of his courses in the Master Buddhist Studies program at the University of Hong Kong. And in 2014, he accepted me as one of his PhD students. And since then, we met very often, almost every day. And also after completing my PhD, we also worked together in the Pali Commentaries Translation Project at the Center of Buddhist Studies of the University of Hong Kong. During all this time, I came to know that he was a very simple person, filled with kindness and humbleness. And he, just like Dr. Amrita Nanda mentioned, actually, he looked after us, not just academically, but beyond. He went beyond academic issues. For example, during special days like birthdays or New Year's, and also at the conclusion of every academic semester, Professor Endo and Madam Prema never forgot to invite us for meals. And actually, Professor Endo used to ask us to select the restaurants we like, and he used to say, to get the good one, to select the good one, and also the expensive ones. And he was actually very friendly with his student. I think these qualities are very inspiring and significant in our life. I'm very grateful to Professor Endo for being an inspirational figure in my life, and also, more importantly, accepting many Bangladeshi students, including myself, as his PhD students. Actually, this is a very large contribution from Professor Endo for the Bangladeshi Buddhist communities. And although he is not with us here physically anymore, but he will be among us with his inspirations and also with his valuable teachings. And I wish our dear Professor Endo to have a peaceful and luminous transition along the path to Nirvana. And I would also like to express my condolence to Madam Prema, and please take care. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Dr. Yananda. May I now invite our next speaker, Dr. Dhammarakita.
Our beloved Master, Venerable Dhamma Jyoti Bhante, professors, Bhikkhu Sangha, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everyone. Today, we all have come together to remember and pay respect to our dear teacher, Professor Toshichi Endo, who recently passed away in Sri Lanka. My acquaintance with Professor Endo was when I was staying and studying at my Master's Institute, Compassion Buddhist Institute in Sri Lanka. I moved to Hong Kong in 2012. After finishing my studies at the University of Kelaniya in Sri Lanka to pursue my Master of Buddhist Studies at the University of Hong Kong. I actually had a direct acquaintance with Professor Endo while studying MBS program. In MBS program, I took Pali course taught by our beloved Professor Endo. Shortly after my MBS studies, I began my PhD research under Professor Endo and completed it under his supervision. Professor Endo had supervised many students, including myself, and completed their PhDs successfully under his supervision. As we all know, he treated all of the students as his own children. Whenever I approached him about my studies, he gave me good advice. His greatness, affection, kindness in particular, has permeated my heart. On Professor Endo's birthdays, he and his lovely wife, Prema, used to arrange a small lunch gathering for us, which I still remember fondly. I went from store to store in search for the suitable birthday gift for our professor. All of these memories will remain in my heart forever. Today, our teacher is not with us, but his fame, writings, and scholarship are showing us the right direction in the field of Buddhist studies. His scholarship will serve as an inspiration to those of us who have studied Buddhism and taken it as a career. I deeply respect his memory. Professor Endo will remain with us. I pay my respect to our beloved teacher and wish him the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Dr. Dhammarakita. May I now invite our next speaker, Ms. Sylvia Chan, please.
Hey, venerables and teachers. The sad news is very sudden. And first of all, I wish Madame Prema, please take good care of yourself. Professor Endo is a very kind and very soft-spoken person. If I remember a few years ago when I was taking his Pali class, he has shown us tremendous patience in teaching us and answering all our questions. He repeatedly explained the grammatical rules and pronunciations for us, and on the ones so difficult for us to understand. We just flock to his side whenever there's a break, and we keep asking lots of questions in every lesson. At the end of the course, a few years ago, he asked us how are we going to sustain what we have learned in Pali for 1 whole year. And he keep encouraging us to read and use the dictionary. So try not to let what has been learned slip away after the course. And recently, he is also my research supervisor at Buddha-Dharma Center, Hong Kong. When I was preparing for the proposal, when he reviewed my proposal and works, he has gone to very fine details, even picking up on some of the spelling mistakes on the Pali words that I've missed out on the diacritical marks. Apart from being a serious scholar, we can see that Professor lived a very simple life with Madame Prema, and very sweetly and very lovingly supporting each other in their day-to-day living in May Hall. I would like to take this occasion to wish Professor peace and joy on his path of transition and offer my most sincere condolence to Madame Prema. And I wish you, Mrs. Endo, that we all stand by you in this difficult time.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Ms. Sylvia Chan. May I now invite our next speaker, Ms. Tina Wu. Ms. Wu, please.
Okay. 病地好，各位法師好，各位老師好。今日嚟分享一啲 Endo 教授一啲事情啦，咁樣嚇。當我聽到教授嘅離世咧，其實我自己好傷心，因為咧佢係一個好好嘅學者，同埋一個好慈悲嘅人啦。Sorry， 我盡量去講，我唔知可唔可以再 deliver 我個 message 咁啊 ？OK， Endo 教授咧係一個好好嘅教授咁樣。雖然我係以讀中文系嘅，但係我都有聽教授嘅英文科目咁樣。因為某啲原因啦，喺呢2年間咧，我同阿教授咧就同埋佢太太啦，Mrs. Endo 咧就比較close 啲啦，咁樣我哋時常都會有去探佢㗎，咁樣。咁每一次去探佢嗰時咧，總係覺得好開心，好開心，因為咧，Mrs. Endo 啦，即係佢太太，我通常我會叫佢做 Madam 嘅咁樣。每次都會俾一啲milk tea 我哋啊，同埋一啲蛋糕仔俾我哋食嘅。總係咧，仲係我覺得我哋係啲小朋友咁樣，但係我哋就好欣然、好欣然去接受呢啲茶點咁樣。咁Endo 教授咧，每次就坐喺度，微微地喺度睇住我哋聊天咁樣。咁有時佢都會同我哋一齊去傾一啲偈嘅咁樣嚇。咁我可以分享一個，即係教授係對我哋啲學生係非常之即係愛會嘅咁啊。我記得喺舊年嘅12月嗰時咧，我突然間收到教授同埋阿 Madam 嘅電話喎。咁佢竟然咧特意咧打個電話俾我，同我講聲生日快樂，同埋咧送上最好嘅祝福。我當時收到呢個電話時咧，我都好愕然，我突然間唔知點樣去回應佢2位老人家嗰個慈愛咁樣，因為我係一個對佢嚟講係一個好少少嘅學生咁樣，咁但係佢對學生嘅關愛咧，喺呢個嘅事情之中咧係好完全反映到嘅咁樣。咁喺呢一個嘅事情之中咧，我覺得係一個新教嚟嘅咁樣，因為佢教我哋係我哋要對呢啲幼小咧都要特別去愛護佢哋咁啊，同埋將我哋嘅愛係要平等去俾每一個眾生嘅咁。咁但係Endo 教授嘅須知會，我冇乜嘢特別可以幫佢做，我只係今日用一啲時間嚟幫手準備啲食物去供贈。我希呢件亦都係我最後能夠為 Professor Endo 做嘅嘢。 咁我亦都希望佢落一生身體真係健康，同埋有個美善嘅人生，同埋早日涅槃。阿彌陀佛。
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Ms. Tina Wu. May I now invite our next speaker, Dr. Dipan Barua. Dr. Dipan, please.
Dear Venerable Professor Dhamma-Jyoti Bhante, professors, Bhikkhu Mahasangha, my friends and ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I'm so sad to share my memory. It was because I was on a Zoom meeting with a student when I learned Professor Endo's demise. Suddenly, my friend, Dr. Jananda, came to my office and said the professor is no more with us. And I stopped my Zoom meeting for 20 minutes. It was because a big shock for me, because just 2 weeks ago, we dropped at the Hong Kong International Airport, and we never expected that he will leave us very soon. But we have to accept the impermanency, which is the real truth, as Buddha also taught us. But what I understand that we will die twice, 2 times. One is our physical death, the other one is our memorial death. Professor Endo, though physically dead, but he remains with us in our heart. When we will forget him, there will be another death of him, if nobody remembers him. But he will remember forever, because the thing he created in the field of Buddhist studies, it will remain forever. And as long as we are in this field, we'll remember him and we'll always admire him, his scholarship. And I believe that his legacy, the thing he created, it will remain forever. And through this memorial service, I always wish his good rebirth throughout the journey of samsaric affairs. And finally, he'll attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Dr. Dipan Barua. May I now invite Before I invite our last speaker to say a few words, I would like to bring to your attention that because of a flight issue, one of our speakers, Dr. Nagasena, is not able to be present here today, but we remember him as a fine student of Professor Endo, and I would like to, on behalf of him, send Professor Endo his best wishes, and he would like Professor Endo to have a wholesome rebirth. Last but not least, may I now invite our final speaker, Ms. O.C. Mack.
Okay, good morning all, Professor Dhamma-Jyoti, all the teachers, member of Sangha, Prema, Patia, Chandani, Senani, and Yukie-san, and Hayashi-san. I know you are all watching. My heart goes to you all. My deepest condolences. I'm going to show you several things of Professor Endo, and because of time passing, I just going to be a bit quick. This is a photo of Professor Endo, taken in 2010. And I would like to start reading from Yukie, sister of Professor Endo. She's now in Japan. And also some photo of the year's professor and Prema when they are in Hong Kong. Also message from the family, the Endo family. So first, This is from UKA written. Thank you all. Thank you for what you have done yesterday, chanting, also chanting in Sri Lanka, chanting in Hong Kong, chanting in Bangladesh twice, and also monastic in Hong Kong that light candle in different temple, and also Venerable Dongho lighted candles in temple in Hong Kong, and your kind words. Thank you all. I'm his sister Yukie. My brother was born in 1952 in Iwaki, Yakushima Prefecture. He's the second son of 3 siblings in the family, working in the forestry industry. Our late parents always said that he was a kind child, helping the parents work. I'm 8 years younger, junior. That is why my brother took good care of me. He loves to read since very young and always encouraging the adults around him to read. And it is kind of troublesome for our parents and our grandmother in this sense. He studied hard since primary school, and he was a baseball pitcher in his primary school years. There were a temple near the school, and he always went to that temple to chant and write a sutta with guidance of monks, such as Prachaparamita Sutta. And through reading and writing sutta, he practices. After entering senior high school, he always rode our father motorbike to school and attracting a lot of attention. He is very kind to people and very detail oriented, and people love to be around him. A third year of studying at Tokyo University, he met Professor Hajime Nakamura, and he knew very clearly that the path he should take. Professor Nakamura suggested to him to go to Sri Lanka to study. Professor Nakamura, a Buddhist scholar in the 21st century, must speak fluent English. This is your goal. He was also introduced to Professor Mori by Professor Nakamura with a reference letter. After arrived in Sri Lanka, he continued to play tennis. My brother's enthusiasm and diligence in learning with pure attitude make him great. And last September, when he turned 69 years old, he told me that he's still have research works to do, and he will try his best, even though when he was having difficulty breathing. So this is briefly from Yukie-san that is listening on the other end. And I'll now show the photo of Professor Endo. I have known him since he arrived in Hong Kong until the last moment. So this is the photo of 2009. You arrived 2008, a year after. This is in the China Club, some of his students here. This of the 2010 February, you see it was the year of the tiger as well. And Professor Endo and Prema and Professor Kalunadasa, we took the bus for the first time. We went to Victoria Park to visit the flower market. The top photo, top left corner photo is when Malady wanted to have a flower, and Professor Endo chose this particular pot. They were deciding which pot to choose to give to Prema, because Prema loved flowers. And photo at the pot, and you know how all of them young people are sitting on the rock. Anyway, right? Go quicker. This is 2010. We reserved the whole restaurant to show our appreciation to Professor Endo, our lunch. They were monastic member, some of the Venerable Wei Feng, Venerable Dong Hong, also there. Okay, this is the photo and thank you photo lunch at the Shanghai restaurant. Shanghai food restaurant. And then the one in the middle bottom is the photo after Professor returned to Hong Kong, and they're having dinner at a Thai restaurant. And then here's the photo of opening ceremony in 2017, or before the start of the opening ceremony. The other two photos here is the CPS 15th anniversary dinner, same year, later on, November, and this professor and Maladi in Sri Lankan tradition costume. And 2014, I got this reverse. 2014, when the Aloka Vihara during the opening ceremony, Gerald is in skirt. And then the fundraising, also dinner for PDC. And he is Prema and Nato at a supermarket in Causeway Bay, Prema. Love Nato. This is the photo in 2019. When Professor and Prema returned to Sri Lanka, November, and then the photo of Professor birthday on last year. This is when he turned 69. The time is, this is a photo of last November, and I must thank Sylvia. She constantly visit to the hospital and taking care of helping out in the hospital, accompanying Prema, and also Lucia and Deepan, Janananda, Mingyu, and Amrita Nanda, they all came. Daniel came, Ellen came, visited the professor because of despite the COVID situation, it was very difficult. Professor was in the ventilation ward for 2 days. Then kind nurses, bottom photo is kind nurses transferring him back to the 31st floor, and he was getting better. Here's the photo after he returned to May Hall. Some visitor came. I'm not going to keep mentioning each one of them. Then about food, daily life. Professor Endo loves sushi. Some of his favorite food in Hong Kong, wonton, gyoza, shrimp dumpling, and siu mai, and his favorite, taiyaki, and also saikyo bento. This is one of his. And he was trying later on using the BPAP machine with the nasal mask on. This is a small gathering because of COVID. 3 days before he depart Hong Kong, we had a small gathering and all Japanese food and homemade sukiyaki. Professor Endo loves sukiyaki. This is the full section where Professor Endo is still talking about his research work with Janananda and giving instruction. Last photo here is on the left side is the morning he leaving Hong Kong. Farewell May Hall, his dormitory where the May Hall, Robert Black, all the staff came to say goodbye. The Sri Lankan community supporter, that's Jessica, Andrani, anyway, I'm not gonna mention each one. And then here's the photo on their way to airport, the people there, and I just farewell, goodbye. Okay, lastly, I'm going to read this very quick from Bhatia Prema family in Sri Lanka. Dear friends, we may not know each other well, but all that you have done and doing from wherever you are in the world give us strength and helped us overcome our grief during the period. We are certain that Professor Endo is very lucky to have people like you all around him. As you know, Professor Endo lived in Sri Lanka for many decades before moving to Hong Kong. And he was humble, a humble being who was loved not only by his family, but all with all our friends and other relatives. On behalf of the entire family, I would like to thank you for honoring us and Professor Endo. Our entire family appreciates your time and support, and this display of care and priority are beyond. Thank you once again, Bhatia and Prema, Chandani, and Sonali. And then this is from UK, Professor Endo's sister, younger sister. We are sincerely thankful to all those who have been with us. And this is in Meholas before going to airport and at the airport. Thank you very much, Professor Endo, for your teaching and friendship. You will be deeply missed, and you will have a special place in our hearts. May you be born in a blissful land where there's no cause to suffering, no sufferings. Okay, this is the end of what I would like to share. Thank you all.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Ms. Osimak, particularly for very kindly sharing so many beautiful photos with each and every one of us, and also for sharing messages from Bhatia and also Mrs. Endo's sister, Yukie. Arigatou gozaimasu. Our speakers have spoken. Now I would like to proceed to the second stage of today's event. I would now like to invite Venerable Anoma to lead each and every one of us to take refuge and also the 5 precepts. Venerable.
To request the 3 refugees with 5 precepts, please recite these stanzas after me. Mayam bhante tisaranena sa pancha silani yachama dutiyampi mayam bhante tisaranena sa pancha silani yachama tatiyampi mayam bhante tisaranena sa pancha silani yachama. Please recite Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato 3 times.
Namo Tassa Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Buddham saranang gacchami.
Buddham saranang gacchami.
Dhammam saranang gacchami.
Dhammam saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddham saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddham saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammam saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammam saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sangham saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sangham saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddham saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddham saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammam saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammam saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sangham saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sangham saranang gacchami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kāmesu micchācārā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kāmesu
Musavada Vedamani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami. Suramire Majjapama Dattana Vedamani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami. Say sadhu. අති ගෞරවහාර්ය අපගේ මහාචාර්ය හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේ වරප්‍රමුඛ මහා සංඝරත්නයන් අවසරයි. ඒ වගේම මහාචාර්යතුමන්ලා ආචාර්යතුමන්ලා ඇතුළු සද්ධා ගුණ සම්පන්න පින්වත්නි, මහාචාර්ය හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේගේ අනුශාසනා අනුව උන්වහන්සේ අනුදැන වදාලා වචන කිහිපයක් සිංහලෙන් මේ වෙලාවේ කතා කරන්න. මොකද අපගේ මහාචාර්යතුමා එන්දෝ මැතිතුමා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ජනතාව සමග හොංකොන් වල ඉන්න ඉතාම කුළුපගව ළඟින් ආශ්‍රය ගන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබුණා. ඒ නිසා මේ වෙලාවේ බලාපොරොත්තු වන්නේ වචන කිහිපයක් සිංහලෙන් කතා කිරීමටයි. අපිටත් මහාචාර්යතුමා ඊටාම කුළුපගව ආශ්‍රය ගන්න අවස්ථාවක් ලැබුණා හොන්කොන් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේදී. ඒ වගේම විශේෂයෙන් මේ බුද්ධ ධම්ම සෙන්ටර් එකේදී අපිට කීප වතාවක් එතුමම ඊටාම ළඟින් ආශ්‍රය කරන්න කතා බහ කරන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබුණා. අපගේ ශ්‍රී ලාංකික ඒ සද්ධාවන්ත පින්වතුන්ටත් බුදු ධම්ම සෙන්ටර් එකේදී එතුමාව හම්බෙලා කතා බහ කරන්න ලැබුණා. එන්දෝ මහාචාර්යතුමා විදේශිකයෙක් වුණාට කතා කරන හැම වෙලාවකම අපට දැනුනේ නැහැ අපි කතා කරන්නේ විදේශිකයෙක් සමග කියලා. හැම වෙලේම අපිත් එක්ක සිංහලෙන් සිංහල භාෂාව බොහොම හුරුසුරුව පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් මහාචාර්යතුමෙක්. ඒ වගේම ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට බොහොම ආදරය කරපු ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සංස්කෘතියට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ බුදුදහමට බොහොම ආදරය කරපු මහාචාර්යතුමෙක්. ඒ නිසාම අපිටත් ශ්‍රී ලාංකික ජනතාවත් එතුමාට ආශ්‍රය කරන්න ලැබුණු බොහොම කුළුපගව මිත්‍රශීලීව කතා බහ කරපු ආදරණීය මහත්මයෙක් මහාචාර්යවරයෙක්. ඒ විතරක් නෙවෙයි එතුමාගේ ආදරණීය බිරිඳ ඒ ප්‍රේමා එන්දෝ මැතිතුමියත් ඒ වගේමයි තාම කුළුපගව අපිත් එක්ක කටයුතු කළා. ඉතින් මේ වෙලාවේ මම ශ්‍රී ලාංකික පිරිස පින්වතුන් පිරිස මේ බුදු ධම්ම සෙන්ටර් එක නිතර පැමිණ දානමානි පූජා කරන මේ පිරිස වෙනුවෙන් අපගේ සාතිසිය සංවේගය ඒ ප්‍රේමා එන්දෝ මැතිතුමියට ආදරණීය බිරිඳ අපගේ මහාචාර්යතුමාගේ ආදරණීය බිරිඳට පුද කරන අතර ගමම්ම අපි ආදරණීය අපගේ මහාචාර්යතුමාගේ පරලෝකගාමී ජීවිතය සැපවත් කර ගැනීමට එතුමාගේ සසරගත ජීවිතය සැපවත් වේවා ප්‍රාර්ථනීය බෝධියකින් අමහා නිවන් සම්පත්තිය ලබා ගැනීමට මේ දක්වා අපගේ මහාචාර්ය හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේ ධම්මජෝති අපගේ මහාචාර්ය හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේගේ අවවාද අනුශාසනා ඇතුව බ්‍රහස්පතින්දා ඒ වගේම අදත් පින්කම් මාලාවක් විශේෂ පින්කම් මාලාවක් අපි ඉෂ්ට සිද්ධ කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු අපි ඉෂ්ට සිද්ධ කළා. මේ සියලුම පින්කම් වල බලමහිමේ එතුමාට මේ පින් අනුමෝදන් වේවා. මේ පින් අනුමෝදන් වීම තුලින් එතුමා ප්‍රාර්ථනීය බෝධියකින් අමහා නිවන් සම්පත්තිය ලබා ගැනීමට මේ පින් හේතු වාසනා වේවා කියලා අපි ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරමු. Sadhu,
sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much. May I now invite Venerable Anoma to lead us to make offerings to the Buddha.
Okay. First, offering of lights.
Would the devotees please be prepared? Please enter from the center row, please. We will now proceed to the offering of lights. Would everyone please turn to page 9, Padipa Puja Light Offering. Page 9. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Please recite this stanza after me. Gana sarappa dippena Deepena tamadam sina Tiloka deepam sambuddham Pujayami tamonudam.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Next, offering of incense. Please recite this stanza after me. Gandha sambara yuddena Dupena ham sugandhina Puje pujaneyantam Bhuja bhajana muttamam.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Next, offering of flowers. Please recite. Vanna gandha gunopetam Etam kusuma santating Pujayami muningdansa Siripada saroruhe.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Now we are going to offer the food. Please recite this stanza. Adhivase tuno bante Bhojanam parikampitam Anukampam upadaya Patiganhatu muttamam.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Next, offering of water. Adivase tuno bante Paniyam parikampitam Anukampang upadaya Patiganhatu muttamam.
Tamang. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Next, offering of fruits. Adivase tuno bante Palam parikampitam Anukampang upadaya Patiganhatu muttamam.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to add only one word. And the reason why I requested Venerable Anoma to do this ceremony in the Sri Lankan tradition, again, it is not sectarian. It's because, as you have heard from us, Endo has adopted Sri Lanka as his own country. And his feeling is always Sri Lanka, his wife is Sri Lanka, his always connection is Sri Lanka. And, you know, Prema was telling me that in the last few days before they were going back, they said, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. Sri Lanka was his home. And that's why we have added this part in Sinhalese. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhante Dhamajyoti. I will now invite Venerable Anoma together with the Mahasangha to start chanting in Pali, and then we will have Mahayana chanting led by Venerable Hong Xian and Venerable Yan Hui.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijjācarana sampanno sugato lokavido anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manussanang buddho bhagavati. Swaṅkāto bhagavata dhammo sandintiko akaliko ehi pansiko opanayiko paccantam veditambo viññoeti. Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho. Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho. Nyāya patipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho. Sāmīci patipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho. Yadidang chantari purisa yugani atta purisa puggalā esa bhagavato sāvaka sangho. Āhuneyo pāvuneyo dakkineyo anjali kareneyo anutteram puññakkettang lokansati. Karaniya manta kusalena yantang santang padang abhisamincha sankho vujucha sujucha suvacho chassa mudu anatimani santussa kocha subharocha appakichocha sallavuka buddhi sandrinchayocha nipakocha appagambo kulesu no gindo nacha kuddhang samacare kinci yena viñño pare upavadeyum. Kemino hondu sabbe santa bhavantu sukhitanta eke cipana bhutanti tasava thavarava anavasesa digava ye mahantava majjhima rassa kanukatula dintava yeva antitta ye ca dure vasanti avi dure bhutava sambhavesiva sabbe satta bhavantu sukhi
Tantana paroparang
nikumbeta nyati manyeta kattatinang kanchi bhyarosana patiga sanya nyanya
manyasa
dukkha menjaya mata yataniyam buddhang ayusaveka putta manurangke evampi sabba bhutesu mana sambhavaye aparimanam
tanca
Sambalokasming mana sambhavaye aparimanang uddang adoca tiriyanca
asambadhang
averam masapantam tintancaram nisinno vasayano vayavtassa vigatamindo
etang
sating adinteya brahmametam viharang itamahu
dittinca
anupagamma sīla dassanena sampanno kāmesu vinayyakedang naijatu gabbaseyam punareti etena sacca vajjena sottite hotu sambada vetena sacca vajjena sottite hotu sambada etena sacca vajjena sottite hotu sambada sadhu 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 Nam mô Ta Bế Quan Sư Yên Phú Sa. Nam mô Ta Bế Quan Sư Yên Phú Sa. Nam mô Ta Bế Quan Sư Yên Phú Sa. Bồ Lô Mi Đô Xin Jin Quan Sư Tại Phổ Sa Xin Sân Bồ Rô Bồ Lô Mi Đô Sư Trao Jie Wu Yun Jie Phong Đô Yi Chie Khổ Vơ Sơ Li Sư Sơ Bồ Yi Không Công Bồ Yi Sơ Sơ Chi Sư Không Không Chi Sư Sơ Sâu Xiang Xin Sư Yi Phổ Ru Sư Sơ Li Sư Sư Trụ Phá Hận Xia Bồ Sư Bồ Miê Bồ Gâu Bồ Jing Bồ Sân Bồ Jien Sư Bồ Không Trong Wu Sao Xiang Xin Sư Hùng Nhân Er Bi Sơ Sư Yi Wu Sơ Sơ Xiang Wei Chung Phá Wu Yen Jie Nai Zhi Wu Yi Shi Jie Wu Mian Yi Wu Mi Jie Nai Zhi Wu La Si Yi Wu La Si Jie Wu Ku Ji Mie Ga Wu Zhi Yi Wu De Yi Wu
故菩提萨埵依般若波罗蜜多故，心无挂碍，无挂碍故，无有恐怖，愿离颠倒梦想，究竟涅槃三世诸佛依般若波罗蜜多故，得耨多罗三藐三菩提，故知般若波罗蜜多是大神咒，是大明咒，是无上咒，是无等等咒，能说一切苦真实不虚。故说般若波罗蜜多咒，即说咒曰：揭谛揭谛波罗揭谛波罗僧揭谛菩提萨婆诃。般若波罗蜜多心经观自在菩萨心生般若波罗蜜多时，照见五蕴皆空，多一切过色。内自色不异空，空不异色，色即是空，空即是色，受想行识亦复如是。舍利子，是诸法空相，不生不灭，不垢不净，不增不减，是故空中无色无受想行识，无眼耳鼻舌身意，无色声香味触法，无眼界乃至无意识界，无明界乃至无能思议，无能思境，无苦集灭道，无智因，无得因，无所得故，菩提萨埵依般若波罗蜜多故，心无挂碍，无挂碍故，无有恐怖，愿离颠倒梦想。依般若波罗蜜多故，得耨多罗三藐三菩提，故知般若波罗蜜多是大神咒，是大明咒，是无上咒，是无等等咒，能除一切苦真实不虚。故说弥多咒，即说咒曰：揭谛揭谛波罗揭谛波罗僧揭谛菩提萨婆诃。般若波罗蜜多心经观自在菩萨心生般若波罗蜜多时，照见五蕴皆空，我亦空空无一色，色即是空，空即是色，受想行识亦复如是。舍利子，是诸法空相，不生不灭，不垢不净，不增不减，是故空中无色无受想行识，想亦无色声香味触法，无眼界乃至无意识界，无明亦无明界，乃至无那思亦无那思境，无苦集灭道，无智亦无得亦无所得故，菩提萨埵依般若波罗蜜多故，心无挂碍，无有恐怖，愿离颠倒梦想，究竟涅槃三世诸佛依般若波罗蜜多故，得耨多罗三藐三菩提，故知般若波罗蜜多是大神咒，是大明咒，能除一切苦事本质不虚。故说般若波罗蜜多咒，即说咒曰：揭谛揭谛波罗揭谛波罗僧揭谛菩提萨婆诃。南无阿弥陀佛耶多他切多耶多地耶多阿弥利多波比阿弥利多悉达波比阿弥利多毗迦兰帝阿弥利多毗迦兰多亲密尼悉耶那智多迦利娑婆诃。南无阿弥陀佛耶多他切多耶多地耶多阿弥利多波比阿弥利多悉达波比阿弥利多毗迦兰帝阿弥利多毗迦兰多亲密尼悉耶那南无阿弥陀佛耶多那切多耶多地耶多阿弥利多波比阿弥利多悉达波比阿弥利多毗迦兰帝阿弥利多毗迦兰多那智多迦利娑婆诃。南无阿弥陀佛。南无阿弥陀佛。南无阿弥陀佛。南无阿弥陀佛。南无阿弥
净土中九品莲花为佛母花开见佛无生不退菩萨为伴侣。
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Venerable Hong Xian and Venerable Yan Hui, for chanting the Mahayana Suttas dedicated to Professor Endo. Thank you so much. May I now invite Venerable Anoma again to lead us for the Gatha to offer Dhana to the Sangha.
So for this Dhana, the community of Mahasangha headed by the Buddha, please recite this stanza after me. Imam bhikkam sapaikaram punyataya Buddha pamukansa bhikkhu sanghassa dema imam bhikkam saparikaram punyataya Buddha pamukansa bhikkhu sanghassa dema imam bhikkam saparikaram punyantaya Buddha pamukansa bhikkhu sanghassa dema.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We will now proceed to the transference of merits, especially to Professor Endo. May I invite the attendants to come forward.
Please recite this after me. Idam me nyati nam hotu Sukhita hontu nyateyo Idam me nyati nam hotu Sukhita hontu nyateyo Idam me nyati nam hotu Sukhita hontu nyateyo Yata variva pura paripurenti Evameva ito dinnam betanang upakampati unname udakam Yataninnam pavantati evameva ito dinnam betanang upakampati Inchitam panchitam tuyam Pameva saminjatu sabbe purentu cintas Pamani jyotiraso yata.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sabbitiyo vivajjantu sabbharogo vinasatu mate bhavattantarajo sukhiti kayuko bhavatu sabbha mangalam rakkantu sabbha devata sabbha buddhanubhavena sada sotti Tute bhavatu sabbha mangalam rakkantu sabbha devata sabbha dhammanubhave Sada sonti bhavantu te bhavatu sabbha mangalan rakkantu sabbha dev sabbha sanghanubhavena sada sonti bhavantu te.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We will now pay respect to the Buddha. We will now pay respect to the Mahasangha. And finally, we will pay respect to, okay, would the lay people please join me in paying respect, our final respect to Professor Toshiichi Endo. Please bow 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Professor Dharmajoti, would you like to say a few words before we complete today's event? Professor Dharmajoti, please unmute. We cannot hear you. If you would like to say a few words before we complete today's event.
I would just add a few words by way of conclusion. And I'm very pleased that although I'm actually under quarantine, I just arrived last night. Otherwise, I would have definitely been here, as I said. But I'm very happy. I feel consoled that this ceremony is this time being done very excellently. And whatever we wish to emphasize have been emphasized, believed by myself, my colleagues, and all the students. And I know many had wondered. Originally, we planned a physical, more kind of, in terms of more attendance, but because of the, as you know, the virus situation, then we only allow a few representative students. Otherwise, I'm sure there will be many, many students who wanted to come here to join this ceremony. So finally, I must again express my deepest condolences to Prema and to their family in Sri Lanka, the home of Professor Endo. May all be well and happy.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Venerable Professor Dharmajoti. And once again, I would like to thank the Mahasangha today for being so kind and so compassionate in dedicating merits and chanting for Professor Endo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And last but not least, I would like to express my deepest or our deepest gratitude to each and every one of you who have attended today's event, either online or present. May you all be well and happy in the year of the tiger. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So take care, everyone. Also, last but not least, I must give our deepest gratitude, thanks to the volunteers who have prepared all these wonderful flowers, fruits, food, and the decorations of today's event. And last but not least, Professor Endo's beautiful photo and the altar flowers, fruits, and candle. So once again, thank you very much to all of our volunteers today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah, also I want to add one word in this context, and we also should thank the Dhamma-Jyoti mission, the members, the devotees involved in the mission also at the very beginning immediately requested me to have functions for Prof. Endo, and they were planning, they're working, as you can see, Teresa, Helen, and other Mavis, and so on, and Yana Nanda also very much involved, planning the program, working very, very hard. So we must thank them also to contribute to the smooth conducting of this memorial ceremony.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, today's event is now being ended. Thank you very much once again to each and every one of you who have attended today's event, either online or in present. Thank you very much.
Don't forget that there will be the Dhana offering to the Sangha member. This is very, very much an integral part of any ceremony in the Sri Lankan tradition and in the Theravada and in the Indian tradition. And that's why we decided to do it, and for Professor Endo, to dedicate all merits to Professor Endo.
Dedicated all merits to Professor Endo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.